The world is holding its breath as the global economy faces a sudden, violent chokehold. The blue waters of the Strait of Hormuz have turned into a graveyard of fire and twisted metal. We are now 12 days into a conflict that is reshaping the map of the Middle East, and the situation has just taken a turn for the absolute worst. This is Operation Epic Fury, and the stakes have never been higher for every single person on this planet. If you want to stay ahead of these world-shifting events and understand what this means for your future, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and join our community for the most direct, unfiltered updates on this developing war. The gateway for 20% of the world's oil is under siege. United States Central Command has just confirmed a massive engagement in the narrow corridor of the strait. Iranian forces made a desperate, aggressive move to shut down the world's energy supply by deploying a fleet of mine-laying vessels. The response from the American carrier strike groups was swift and devastating. 16 Iranian ships were sent to the bottom of the sea in a matter of hours. But the cost of this victory is being felt at every gas pump in the world. As these ships burn, the flow of oil has effectively stopped, and the global market is in a total tailspin. This isn't just a localized skirmish anymore. It is an all-out battle for control of the seas. While the White House suggests the mission's goals are nearly complete, the reality on the water tells a very different story. The threats are escalating, with warnings that if the disruption continues, the next wave of strikes will be 20 times harder than anything we have seen yet. This is a high-stakes game of chicken where the entire world is the passenger. But it's not just the water that's on fire. Iran has launched a massive, intense wave of retaliatory strikes. They aren't just looking at the ships anymore. They are aiming for the heart of the region's energy infrastructure. Missiles and suicide drones are raining down across the Gulf, slamming into Saudi Arabian oil facilities and targeting vessels off the coast of the United Arab Emirates. The sky over the Middle East is filled with the smoke of burning crude and the roar of outgoing interceptors. This is the kind of escalation that experts feared would ignite a true global catastrophe. And it is happening right before our eyes. Even American diplomatic soil is no longer safe. In a bold and terrifying move, a drone strike has successfully breached the perimeter of a major U.S. facility near the Baghdad airport in Iraq. The message from the Iranian forces is clear. They are willing to hit back anywhere, at any time. The region is a powder keg, and the match has been lit. Stay with us as we dive deeper into the chaos and reveal the truth behind the leadership changes in Tehran and the devastating civilian toll that is turning the tide of international opinion. This is the story of a world on the brink. But while the leadership settles into their bunkers, the cost of this war is being written in blood on the streets. One of the most horrific events of this entire campaign centers on a girls' school in Iran. 175 lives were snuffed out in a single strike. The images coming out of that site have shocked the global conscience and created a massive divide in the international community. There is a fierce, ugly debate raging over who pulled the trigger. While some in the highest levels of the American government suggest Iran may have staged the strike or misfired their own weapons, officials on the ground and international observers are pointing to a much darker reality. The finger-pointing has reached a fever pitch. Critics are calling the intelligence incoherent and the military strategy incomplete. They are asking the hard questions that no one seems to want to answer. What happens to the world's economy if the bombing stops but the anger remains? If the factories are rebuilt and the missiles are fueled again, has anything actually been won? The uncertainty is what's driving the chaos. Even as the American president speaks of completion and victory, His own administration is scrambling to explain the mounting civilian toll and the confusing messages coming from the front lines. The battlefield is no longer confined to the borders of Iran. This fire is spreading like a dry brushwood blaze across the entire region. Israel has made a massive move, stretching its air campaign deep into the heart of Lebanon. Central Beirut, a city that is seeing too much war already, is once again shaking under the weight of heavy explosions. The target is Hezbollah, the group that has been raining long-range projectiles into Israeli cities since this conflict began. The Mediterranean coast is lighting up at night with the glow of interceptors and impacts, proving that this is now a multi-front war that threatens to pull every neighbor into the abyss. The gears of the world's most powerful military are grinding in ways we haven't seen in decades, and the sheer scale of this movement is staggering. If you're trying to make sense of a world that feels like it's spinning out of control, you've come to the right place for the raw truth. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications immediately, because the maps are being redrawn as we speak, and you need to know where the next strike is landing before the rest of the world even hears the sirens. This is the only place where we connect the dots between the front lines and your front door. The American military is now playing a massive, high-stakes game of musical chairs across the globe. In a move that has sent shockwaves through the Pacific, the United States has started pulling its advanced missile defense systems, the famous TAAD batteries, clean out of South Korea. Why? Because the fire in the Middle East is growing so large, so fast, that every shield the Pentagon owns is being rushed to the desert. This isn't just a redeployment. It's a desperate race to ring the Gulf with steel before the next swarm of Iranian drones takes flight. It leaves a massive hole in the defense of Asia, proving that the planners in Washington believe the real big one is happening right now in the Strait of Hormuz. While the missiles fly, the money is screaming. The global markets are behaving like a wounded animal. 1 minute, oil prices are screaming toward $120 a barrel, and the next, they are swinging wildly based on a single sentence from the White House. The world's economy is currently tethered to a narrow strip of water that is choked with mines and burning tankers. Every time a new report comes out about a ship being hit or a pipeline being sabotaged, the price of everything you buy, from bread to electronics, starts to climb. We are watching a total economic siege play out in real time, and there is no plan B if those waters don't clear soon. Inside the halls of power, the unity is starting to crack. The high fives over the initial strikes are being replaced by pointed, angry questions. Lawmakers are demanding to know the endgame. They are looking at the smoke rising from the Iranian coast and asking, what happens on day 100 if we break the factories and the ports? But the spirit of the resistance only grows stronger. Have we actually won anything at all? The criticism is getting loud, and it's coming from people who worry that the administration is flying blind into a storm that has no exit ramp. The word incoherent is being tossed around the Senate floor like a live grenade, and while the politicians argue, the shadow of Russia is beginning to loom over the wreckage. Moscow is stepping out of the wings, offering to play the role of the peacekeeper in a war they didn't start but certainly want to finish on their own terms. They floated a peace proposal, trying to position themselves as the only adults in the room, while the U.S. maintains a hardline stance of unconditional surrender. It's a classic power play, designed to peel away international support from the American mission. The world is being forced to choose sides, and the middle ground is disappearing under a layer of ash and high-octane fuel. The battlefield is no longer just a map of the Middle East. It has become a global game of survival where the rules are being written in fire. If you feel like the world is shifting under your feet, you are not alone. We are here to bring you the clarity that the mainstream media often ignores. To make sure you are the most informed person in the room as this war unfolds, hit that subscribe button right now. Your support allows us to keep digging into the stories that matter most. From the front lines to the hidden halls of power where these life-altering decisions are made. While the world watches the explosions, a much more subtle and dangerous game is being played with the very lifeblood of our modern world. The Iranian strategy has shifted from direct naval confrontation to a death by 1,000 cuts approach against the global energy grid. It is not just about the ships in the Strait of Hormuz anymore. We are seeing coordinated, intense strikes hitting the massive desalination plants and the sprawling refinery complexes that keep the desert nations and the global economy running. When a missile hits a tanker, the price of gas goes up. When a drone hits a refinery, the entire system starts to collapse. The sheer intensity of these strikes is caught in a loop of escalation that seems to have no off-ramp. On one side, you have an American administration that is doubling down, threatening to hit the Iranian mainland 20 times. Harder if the interference continues. On the other, you have a new Iranian leadership that feels it has nothing left to lose. They are launching everything they have: short-range ballistic missiles, swarms of low-cost suicide drones, and even repurposed anti-ship missiles, trying to find any crack in the high-tech armor of the U.S. and its allies. It is a collision of raw desperation and overwhelming force. Inside the borders of the neighboring Gulf states, the atmosphere is one of pure terror. For decades, these nations have built shimmering cities of glass and steel on the promise of stability. Now, that stability is gone. The drone strike on the U.S. facility in Baghdad was a signal to every neighbor. If you host the West, you are a target. This has sent a chill through every capital, from Riyadh to Abu Dhabi. They are watching the American THAAD missile shields being moved around like chess pieces and wondering if they will be the ones left unprotected when the next intense wave of strikes begins. But perhaps the most chilling part of this fourth chapter in the war is the silence from the traditional voices of peace. The international community is paralyzed, the United Nations is deadlocked, and the usual diplomatic back channels are being choked off by the smoke of Operation Epic Fury. We are seeing a world where the only language being spoken is the language of unconditional surrender. It's a terrifying shift in global politics, where the goal isn't just to win a battle, but to completely erase the enemy's ability to resist, no matter the cost, to the civilians caught in the middle. The world is standing on the edge of a cliff, and the ground is starting to crumble. We are witnessing a moment in history that our grandchildren will read about in textbooks, if there are any left to be written. This is the final act of a 12-day storm that has changed everything we thought we knew about global security. If you've stayed with us through this entire journey, you are now among the most informed people on the planet. To keep this level of deep, raw insight coming your way every single day as the world transforms, hit that subscribe button right now. We are the voice in the dark, and we aren't going anywhere until the last fire is out. As we look at the wreckage of these past 2 weeks, the biggest question isn't who won the battle, but what kind of world is left behind. The Strait of Hormuz is no longer a blue waterway. It is a graveyard of steel and a barrier of fire. Even if the shooting stops this second, the mines are still there. The tankers are still sinking, and the trust that kept the global economy moving has been shattered into a million pieces. We are looking at a future where the unconditional surrender demanded by the West meets the unbreakable will of a new, wounded Iranian leadership. It's a recipe for a conflict that could last for years, hidden in the shadows of the desert, The shift of power to Mustafa Khamenei represents a dark new chapter. This isn't a leader looking to negotiate. This is a leader born in the middle of a firestorm, presiding over a nation that has seen its schools hit and its icons fallen. On the other side, the American administration is doubling down, moved by a belief that total force is the only way to end the threat once and for all. But as the THAAD missile batteries are hauled across the globe and Beirut shakes under the weight of new explosions, the total victory being promised feels further away than ever. The map of the Middle East is being rewritten in real time, and the ink is still wet with blood. We have to face the hard truth about the human cost. Beyond the oil prices and the carrier strike groups, there are the stories of the 175 lives lost in a single school strike. A tragedy that has become a political football rather than a moment for global mourning. This is the true face of modern war, confusing, devastating, and heart-wrenching. The international community is divided, the markets are terrified, and the soldiers on the front lines are waiting for a command that might never come. The world is waiting for a hero, but right now, all it sees is the smoke of Operation Epic Fury. This is the end of our deep dive into the March 11th escalation, but it is only the beginning of the story. The events in the Strait of Hormuz and the strikes across the Gulf are ripples that will turn into tidal waves in the coming weeks. We will be here, watching every movement, analyzing every strike, and bringing you the truth that the rest of the world is too afraid to say out loud. Keep your eyes on the horizon, keep your ears open, and stay subscribed to this channel. The world is changing fast, and we are the only ones making sure you don't get left behind in the chaos. Would you like me to generate a summary of the most critical military targets hit during this period? Or perhaps a breakdown of the current global oil price projections based on these events?